Yeah, how? Do y'all file taxes? How does that work? Let me know below.
Glad to have you, amazing viewer. In today's video, we'll be exploring one of the most asked questions once more from Americans to Chinese on Homeownership. This has not been just a question, it has also been one of the most shocking truths for Americans.
The Chinese people on the Red Note app are saying they don't pay property tax, and as a Canadian, I'm sitting here going, wait a second, we have the highest taxes in like the world. And we have potholes everywhere. They have low taxes, and they live in the future. What do you mean they don't have taxes? What do you mean you buy a house for $70,000 and you own it forever? What?
In this video, we'll be exploring the differences in tax payments between China and the US. So we are going to also understand the reason behind their tax payment and what informed them as a country that could be explaining the reason behind their taxes. Thank you so much for being here. Like the video for recommendation. If you're new here, subscribe. I share a compilation of TikTok and Homeownership videos for educational purposes. And to my returning viewers, love and appreciate you. Your support is priceless. I appreciate you. Enjoy the rest of the video.
In China, the income tax rate is progressive, meaning the more you earn, the higher the tax rate. If you earn less than 5,000 Chinese yuan a month, you don't need to pay any taxes. If you earn more than that, tax rate starting at 3% for the lower earners and going all the way up to 45% for the highest income levels. Here's a quick breakdown. China also allows various deductions. For example, you have social insurance contributions that include pension, medical insurance, unemployment insurance, and housing funds. The amount deducted depends on your employer, but this can also reduce your taxable income. There are also special deductions for things like housing loan interest, educational expenses for children, and care for elderly parents. The salary from my last job falls on the 3% bracket, and after all the deductions, the income tax was less than 200 Chinese yuan. To be honest, I never figured out how it's calculated because it's just so little of money that I can ignore. According to the data released by Guangzhou Bureau of Statistics, the average monthly salary for urban private sector employees in my city in 2023 is 6,828 Chinese yuan. So I think majority of people here would be paying 3% of income tax. I hope that helped you understand a little bit more of how the income tax system works here.
I graduated from college in 2016, and my monthly income at that time was around 5,000 to 6,000 yuan. At this income level, there's no need to pay taxes in China. This income has a purchasing power equivalent to about $2,500. In 2022, the 6th year of my work, my annual income was 700 yuan, with a purchasing power equivalent to $350,000. Taking into account tax-free allowances such as for renting a house and supporting parents, I finally paid 200,000 yuan in taxes. If I get sick or have children, the tax amount will be further reduced on this basis. Now, I've been working for 8 years. In 2024, I set up a personal studio. My annual income is 1 million yuan with a purchasing power equivalent to $500,000, but I don't pay any taxes at all. This is because the government encourages us to start businesses. For personal studios, if the annual income is within 1.2 million yuan, it's tax-free, with a monthly tax-free allowance of 100,000 yuan. Our 5 basic insurances, including medical insurance, pension insurance, unemployment insurance, work-related injury insurance, and maternity insurance, must be paid by the company for employees. It's about 1,000 yuan per month. The company and the employee each pay half. There's also the Housing Provident Fund, which is 400 yuan per month. Again, the company and the employee each pay half. The Housing Provident Fund can be used when we buy or rent a house. It provides a low-interest loan of up to 600,000 yuan, with an interest rate of 3% and a maximum loan term of 30 years. If you don't want to buy or rent a house, you can withdraw the Provident Fund at any time. These are the minimum standards that companies are required to pay. As long as an employee has provided labor to the company, these must be paid. Even if there's no labor contract, the company still has to pay. There's no way to avoid it. If a company dares not to pay, You don't need to hire a lawyer. Just call the government's Labor Arbitration Bureau. Someone will handle it immediately. The Labor Arbitration Bureau will contact the company and demand payment. If the company doesn't pay, it will be directly fined after arbitration, and the money will be compensated to the employees, usually 2 to 3 times the amount that should be paid. The process is very fast and will be completed within 2 months. Usually, it doesn't take that long and can be resolved in a few days. The above-mentioned insurance and provident fund are the minimum payment standards. You can pay more, but generally, companies only want to pay according to the minimum standards. Only some large companies will pay more. My wife works for a big internet company. She pays 7,000 yuan for the Housing Provident Fund every month, and the company and she each pay half. My American friends, do you have a lot of types of taxes? I've heard there are many strange taxes. Can you tell me about them?
This is what a $100,000 salary looks like after taxes in Texas. Gross yearly income of $100,000. Federal income tax at $14,768. Social Security tax at $6,200. Medicare at $1,450. Total taxes paid for the year is $22,418. Net pay is $77,582. Meaning you'll pay 22.4% in total taxes in Texas.
I just paid my property taxes, and I'm going to tell you what I pay in Texas as a resident here. If you look at the value of my home, it's $312,485. I bought the house for about $200,000 10 years ago, but because people from California keep thinking they want to move here, property values have doubled, almost doubled since then. So that's what the basis of my house is, $312,000-ish. It's 2,500 square feet. Okay, if I look at my tax bill for my county, I see that $960 something goes to the county, as well as $408 to the hospital district, which is weird because our public hospitals really suck here. And then $309 go to the community college system, which is an excellent community college system. And I don't mind that. So the total I pay to the county taxes is $1,943.47. Okay, now let's go to the next taxes, which is going to be the school taxes. A lot of people hate paying school taxes because they might say, I don't have kids, blah, 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 blah. I went to the public school system in Texas from elementary school all the way to college, so I don't know what the hell's in my eye. I really do not have a problem with paying school taxes at all. It is $1,630.22. Now, one thing I do want to say is the area of Harris County that I live is still expanding, and they didn't have the infrastructure as far as residential communities here. So what started happening was apartments started coming in, and we are overrun with apartments, which is not the fault of the people renting there. It's just we kind of have an apartment crisis, because I can guarantee you that so far I am paying, what is this, $3,000 or $3,500 or whatever so far in taxes. I can guarantee you that the apartment complex people do not pay anywhere near that in their rent. Now, again, that's not their fault. It's just how the system is. Okay, next we go to, because I don't live in the city, like I told you, I live in the county. I have to pay something called a MUD tax, which is a municipal utility district tax. This is what my water and sewer infrastructure is. So not only do you have to pay water and sewer every month, you have to pay tax on that at the end of the year. So it's roughly $900 that I pay every year for the privilege of water and sewer. Usually, if you move into a brand new neighborhood, it's going to be very expensive. It might be $3,000, right? But as the neighborhood gets older, the infrastructure gets paid off. So theoretically, this $900 next year will be like $870, etc. Now, MUD tax is really the only tax that actually goes down. So if you look at that, all combined, that it's $4,473.65 is all the taxes I pay in Texas.
Okay, so how do taxes work if you are an American who has left the U.S. and is living abroad? And this is coming from someone who has lived in 3 different countries under different employment statuses. So I'm going to give you the info that I know from experience. So number 1, if you are someone who is working for a foreign company and you're earning income in that company, so you're not working for a U.S. company abroad, you're working in a new country for a local company, you do have to still file U.S. taxes and declare your income, but you don't always have to pay taxes. So you'd have to file it and then claim something called the foreign earned income exclusion. I'm going to put the actual text on screen. And if you're making under a certain amount, I think the number is like 125,000 or something like that, then you don't have to pay taxes. But you do still have to file it and you do still have to declare it, but you will not be taxed. And then if you are someone who is self-employed, a remote worker on a digital nomad visa, then you will still have to file your U.S. taxes because, again, you're earning American money in a foreign country. So you just file it as a self-employed person. I think that's a Schedule C, but check with your tax provider. And then you also might have some tax liability in the country that you're living in, but that will depend on the country you picked. So some countries have different kind of tax schemas for digital nomads. So that's just something that you will have to research as you were deciding which country to live in, because that could also be a consideration, who has the more favorable tax program for foreign workers. But if you're an American living abroad, you will always have to file your taxes. But I just want to make sure you know that even though you file them, that doesn't mean that you're paying and then getting taxed in two countries because you have that credit.
Under the tax law of China, a foreigner who has resided in China for a cumulative total of 183 days within a calendar year is considered a resident taxpayer. Resident taxpayers in China are required to report their global income to the Chinese tax authorities. However, foreign friends, don't worry. According to the Chinese tax law, if the years in which you have resided in China for a cumulative total of 183 days are less than 6 consecutive years, as long as you file a record with the competent tax authorities, the income which you earn outside China and is paid outside China is exempt from personal income tax in China. Moreover, if in any year during which you have resided in China for a cumulative total of 183 days, you leave China for more than 30 days at a time, the consecutive years of your residence in China for a cumulative total of 183 days will be recalculated. Therefore, foreign friends, please keep these two most important things in mind. Firstly, if you have resided in China for a cumulative total of 183 days, to avoid having your global income tax in China, you need to file a record with the competent tax authorities. Secondly, to avoid being identified as having resided in China for a cumulative total of 183 days for 6 consecutive years, you can leave China for more than 30 days in a single trip in one of the intermediate years.
I don't know if you guys realize this, but in America, after you buy a house and you finish paying off your mortgage and your principal payment, every single year you still have to pay property tax. But in China, if you buy, you finish paying it all off, it's yours. There's no property tax to keep your land. It's it's your house and it's your land. But in here, we start to pay. So I thought that property will be mine, but no, honey, you start to pay for tax. So how am I gonna pay the tax on top of maintaining my personal happiness and go travel and have fun? Can't afford that.
Hello guys, in this video I'm gonna share with you about the tax situation in China. I mentioned many times the tax in China is very light compared to United States. And the tax is mainly only income tax. We do not have all the different tax you have, like property tax. So this system really do not creating homeless people. But the text is very difficult to say in English for me, so I'm going to use AI to read it. Also, I searched this from AI. It's a general situation. I cannot go to detail because based on different city, there will slightly differences, but still it's very, very light compared to your country.
Why is it that Chinese residents pay relatively low taxes but still get a whole bunch of social services? But while in the US, you pay quite a lot in taxes, and sometimes it feels like the social services are lacking and things are so expensive. In China, the tax system is meticulously planned. The government doesn't just focus on the salaries in the pockets of residents. Corporate taxes account for a significant portion. Moreover, the higher one's income, the more taxes that will be levied. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but it's just a pure logic. Why do so many wealthy people choose to immigrate to the United States? It's hard to believe that they would be so eager to go there if they had to pay more taxes in the US. On the other hand, the government is extremely meticulous in spending money. When planning social service projects, it focuses on the most urgently needed by the people first. And education must be done well. From preschool education to higher education, there are corresponding funding support strategies. Compulsory education is directly free. Behind this is the government's careful consideration and precise investment of funds on the crucial point of ensuring that every child has access to education. Medical care is the same. Money is spent on the crucial points. Introduce advanced equipment and cultivate professional talents in order to make it not difficult and not expensive for people to see a doctor. Moreover, the medical insurance system is gradually improved to minimize the risk of everyone's medical expenses. Now, looking at the US, the tax system there is complex and fragmented. Different levels of government levy multiple types of taxes, and a significant portion of that money seems to get tied up in bureaucracy or other areas that don't directly translate to better social services for the public. For instance, in the healthcare sector, the involvement of private insurers drives up costs as they aim for profit. In education, the lack of sufficient government support for the public's institutions means tuition fees skyrocket. So in a nutshell, the difference boils down to the different philosophies and strategies of two governments. China aims to provide its people first and foremost, while in the US there are more competing interests and inefficiencies that lead to current situation. What do you think? Let me know in the comments, and if you want to see more, please follow me, and I'll see you in my
I found that the life of the ordinary people in US may be even more difficult than what we see online. Actually, China also has consumption tax, which mainly focuses on products that affect the environment and health, such as oil, fuel, tobacco, alcohol, and luxury goods. In addition to consumption tax, China also has a value-added tax and corporation income tax. But why do Chinese people feel that they have not paid these taxes? Because they are levied on companies, not individuals. Individuals only pay personal tax, which is about 20%, and you can apply for a tax refund at the end of the year. In fact, the combined personal income tax of China's 1.4 billion people is not as high as that paid by a Chinese tobacco company. Is that shocking? You may not know what this means. For example, in 2024, the total income of the Chinese government was $3.6 trillion, which the personal income tax accounted for 7%. The total income of the US government was $4.9 trillion, which the personal income tax was 47%. But the total population of the US is only a quarter of China. In other words, the average American has to pay 11 times more tax than the Chinese pay in order to win this bill. But I believe that with the development of history and the outbreak of social contradictions, the tax pressure on Americans will come down. Because in ancient China, there were also some rulers who seriously taxed people. Government joined forces with businessmen to bully people. Many people did not have enough to eat and had no place to live. And there were homeless everywhere. These people had to rob and steal things in order to survive. They even would organize groups to kill the emperor and take away the power and money of the upper class. These people look for trouble every day, affecting social order and business development, and the life of the upper class is also difficult. So now our government has learned the lesson of hatred. If they want to keep their power and money or to be sustainable, they must let most people it will have houses and a little money so that most people will not make revolutions every day. That's all. Thank you for your listening. Bye.
Hello guys. How many people in the United States living a life paycheck to paycheck? Is that, I heard the number is like 67%. I'm not sure if that's true or not. In China, the majority in China, when I say majority, is over 90%, maybe 95%. People, family or person, they all have savings. You barely see any family have no savings. I don't think this very able to comprehend for the people who spend their most of time and all his friends living a life with paycheck to paycheck. This leading to the question during the pandemic, people stopped working for a month, how they criticize China. But for me, my personal opinions, that's absolutely okay. For me, I don't need to work for the next 10 years. I can still living my life. And for most people I know, they all have savings. Not working 1 year, 2 year is not going to bankrupt. But for very small amount of people who learned too much of the capitalism system, they spend money, spending their money advance and paying a lot of money for apartment in big city in Beijing or Shanghai or something like that. They may face a very difficult time, but that is their own choices to choose to believe way too much of the capitalism. So I don't know. Do you get what I'm trying to tell you? It's different. You can call it cultural differences or system differences. But my personal experience, which I lived in United States, California 4 years, I prefer the life in China. I also live in a very small city in China, have 1 million population. The average spending here is relatively so affordable. What kind of life you're gonna choose? You're gonna choose to chasing all the fancy stuff in a big city, or like me, choosing to live a very simple and easy life in a small city. I'm quite comfortable with my current life. I was also very comfortable when I was living in Beijing for 10 years. So, yeah. What do you think?
Get ready with me for the annual tax filing in China. Go to the individual income tax app. Click the banner here for 2024 annual income calculation. This notice basically says an appointment is needed if you want it to be done by 20th March. Otherwise, you can just apply anytime between 21st March to the end of June. And since the first 3 days have been booked out, I chose the 4th day. Right here, you can check out all the tax deduction policies applicable to you. 7 categories in total. I'll make a list for you. For me personally, only supporting the elderly applies to me since my dad is over 60 years old, so I can deduct 3,000 yuan every month. Then the tax department will only tax the remaining amount. And since the taxes are prepaid by my company out of my salary, so after the annual calculation is finalized, I'll receive a refund from the tax department. Here is the refund I got in 2024 for 2023 annual tax calculation. Over 900 yuan. It's not a big number, but can definitely cover 2 to 3 fancy restaurant meals or a nice skincare gift box, or maybe gas bill for a month. It'll be done by the system automatically. You don't have to do your own math or have someone else to do it for you. Cannot wait to get my 2024 tax refund.
You all had 3 big questions from my recent stitch, so here's some answers. Number 1, do I have to pay taxes? Yeah. There's only 2 countries where citizens have to pay taxes no matter where they live in the world. One is Eritrea, and the other, the United States. Number 2, have I given up my citizenship? No, I don't plan to. It's a few different reasons. The first, it's really expensive and a big legal headache. Number 2, I love the United States and I want to go back. Third, I have political aspirations, so need the citizenship for that. Third question, why do all Americans call themselves expats when they're really immigrants? Now, this is commonly misunderstood, but expat and immigrant are 2 very different things, very different legally and very different economically. An immigrant is someone who leaves their home country and relocates permanently to another country. An expat, on the other hand, is someone who temporarily relocates to another country with the intention of returning. Now, as I said, I have every intention of returning to the US, just not right now, so that makes me an expat. Hope that helps.
Wow, you've watched to this extent. What are your thoughts? These are two countries operating on two different horizons, and I don't know why are we comparing them first. Because the more I go on, the more I start to realize that these two countries, maybe we should find another country to compare with. Yeah, because I feel like they're operating on two different horizons, like things that are bringing them together. Maybe it's the, what should I say? It's how they behave, both of them. They love work. Yeah, they do. Though Americans feel like they are not compensated for the work they do, so it has turned them into kind of lazy because they are not getting rewarded as they work. So the work culture is really, you're kind of bringing them together, but in terms of development and how countries operate, they are two different people. They're two different countries. And yeah, the best gift that you can ever give to yourself after all these years of labor is a good retirement. And if you live in a place where is not a place that is not offering you the opportunity to see your retirement in a good light, and then it's time that you consider other options, because there's life beyond what you can see in your country. So it might not just be in the US, it might not just be in Canada, it might also be elsewhere. I've seen Europeans moving to China, moving to other countries of the world, parts of the world, and we are here, to look into possibilities to be able to live a life that is comfortable. We have to feature ourselves in the future. It's so surprising to see how people are able to save money in China, that for a whole year you can decide to stay home and still live at that young age. Who does that? In which world? In the US, can you do that? I know we can also do that in Africa, but in the US, I know it's practically impossible. And that was it about this video. Kindly share your thoughts in the comment section. Support the channel through the thank button in ways you can. I appreciate you. Thank you for being here.